The Forest Camp is our first detention alternative program that allows medium and high-risk youth the opportunity to spend time in a setting other than detention.
When I first found out that I was going to have to come to Forest Camp, it was a choice between here or going to the detention center. And any day I'd rather come out here than the detention center. It is still punishment, you know, you still have to ask when to go to the bathroom, you still have to ask if you can just get a glass of juice, but you know, you have support, there's people to talk to. I'm here for drugs and alcohol, and I got, you know, honor roll student, applied to universities. I don't see where taking me out of my school to put me in a cell would really help me in the future. I see coming out here, taking a time out from the drugs and the alcohol, getting to know myself actually, is more helping me in my future than like destroying my self-esteem.
The number of youngsters in the detention facility is a function of two variables and two variables only. And those are the number of youth who are admitted to the facility and the amount of time that they spend in the facility. The development of things like the risk assessment instrument were designed to reduce admissions. Reducing length of stay is primarily accomplished through a variety of case processing reforms.
How our case processing has changed as a youth is brought in overnight. We have an 11:30 meeting where we actually discuss their cases.
Next case is Kenny.
The people at the 11:30 meeting include the placement coordinator, the district attorney, Department of Human Services, the youth attorney, and at that time we look at what the best options for the youth are.
Other things that you're concerned about in terms of community safety?
He is not a risk to the community in my opinion. His charges have been menacing and theft too and all probation violations.
The only two things that we really look at to make sure the youth is held in custody is the risk to the community or if they will return for a court hearing.
I think it makes sense to give him a try out of custody. Okay?
Thanks. Let's move on to the next case.
Then at that time the youth has a 1:30 hearing.
Preliminary hearings will now begin. Kenny Cortez.
Well, Your Honor, my client has a ray of only 8, which is a conditional release ray.
And at that time we decide if the youth is going to be held in custody or released to the community, and the judge who hears that makes that decision.
The court rules that this youth shall be released to the staff secure shelter for placement and on the community detention program for monitoring.
So hopefully they've spent less than 24 hours in our facility if they do not need to be held in custody.
The good news in Chicago is we went from a population of 842 kids to a population of 450. So we've reduced the harm we're doing to kids. We're running a safer program. Kids are in the community, no risk to public safety and all those good things. But unfortunately, at 842, we had 90% African American, 5% Hispanic, and 5% white in the facility. Today at 450, we have 90% African American, 5% Hispanic, 5% white.
The jurisdictions that were most successful were those places that not only effectively implemented the core strategies, but that also developed specific strategies designed to address the particular needs and circumstances of kids of color in their facilities. Multnomah County in particular was able to demonstrate that it is possible to reduce racial disparities by a determined and persistent effort to ensure that bias is eliminated and that a level playing field is created.
In some ways, it's embarrassing to me that the small efforts that we have made here in Multnomah County are considered a national model, because I feel like we've just scratched the tip of the iceberg. What we have done here is brought together a group of policymakers here in this community who care about this issue because they are personally committed to equal justice.
It helps to have people of color involved in the system, people who will look like them and they come into court and say, oh, this person is familiar, this person is someone I can relate to.
Sí, señora González. Sí, llamo Yolanda Logan de Probación.
And that holds true with the people that are working for the probation department. Can they relate to the young people? Can they relate to the families?
Okay, nos vemos ahí. Adiós.
Do you understand who you're dealing with?
The other issue, and this is really the tough one, is we've got to face the issue that we don't select who comes to the front door of the juvenile justice system. The probation officers don't, detention. This is basically driven by law enforcement. What kind of enforcement, deployment of resources, policies, and practice? And until we get into that arena, which is very difficult, we will be tinkering at the margins rather than really addressing the problems.
When we reduce the detention population, it allows us to do more with programming with the kids. You know, once kids are held in detention, and there are some who do need to be held in detention for security reasons, we want to make sure that kids are being taught something while they're here. We want to make sure that we're giving kids every opportunity to develop skills and to learn things that will help them to become more successful once they're released. Here in Portland, we have had such a reduction in population in the last 3 years that we've been able to close 3 units. We'd like to think it's because of our detention reform policies.
Around here in Santa Cruz County, they try to help out the kids as much as possible. Other counties for juveniles don't have like drug programs and stuff. Santa Cruz County has a couple.
They started getting a lot of new programs, a lot of new help, more funding for acupuncture and yoga, and they're hiring more counselors to come up and talk to us.
This facility right here is a lot better. It gets us in here, gets us out of here to something else that can help us. Whereas the bigger places are just juvenile prisons pretty much.